feeling of all of those blessings rushing in wasn't really there, unless you're a celebrity and you got the old-fashioned bag of fan mail. That just wasn't something that we could experience, but we can experience it now. And the feeling of peace and gratitude that I get when my birthday rolls around and I get all of these blessings, it's very similar to the feeling that I get when I feel as though I've been communicated to by God. When I feel that God has spoken directly to me. Have you ever gotten that feeling that, oh yeah, that was a message, that was just for me? And what feelings accompany that? Gratitude, love, humility, maybe a twinge of unworthiness. Well, there are many, many wonderful feelings that we can get when we feel as though we are in direct communication to God. And so we want to see and feel this more often. We want to experience God's creativity and playful nature as it finds different avenues to get through to us. But are these rare occasions, or are they more than do they occur more than we realize? Is God speaking more than we are picking up? Are we leaving some of these blessed moments on the table? Well, when it comes to the communication from God, there are a lot of different opinions. And even Christianity is split on this. There are some factions of Christianity that believe, hey, God's talking to me right now, and I'm going to relay that communication to you. And then there are other factions of Christianity said, yeah, God talked to us a long time ago, and that's how the Bible was written. The Bible's done, and so God is done with the direct communication. So there's a lot of different schools of thought, but let's take this from the beginning. Let's see how science of mind looks at this and looks at the possibilities of God's communication. So to examine this, we need to answer three basic questions. Question number one is, who's God? Who or what is God? What is this thing that we expect to hear from? So that's very important to know. Number two, how does God speak? What is God's medium of conversation? How is God getting through to us? So we must know that if we're going to pick up more of these communications from God. And third, we need to know what God might be saying. What kinds of things should we expect to hear from God? So let's just get right into it. You with me so far? We're going to get into this. And at the end of this, we are going to have a way to know exactly when God is talking to us and what God is saying. So we got some heavy lifting to do. So we got to get right into this. So when I refer to God, I'm talking about the all-powerful, all-knowing creator of all things. And as such, I'm making a few assumptions about God, looking at God in this way. Assumption number one is that God is infinite. No beginning, no end. Infinite. Everywhere, all at once. So we got to really wrap our brains around infinity, because it is crucial to kind of have an understanding of that before we move on. So what is the nature of an infinite being? Where is an infinite being? Well, the nature of being infinite means that there is no center point of God. There is no place, no one place that God is more concentrated than any other place. So there is an equanimity about God's presence. God is everywhere. So if I have an infinite God and I take something like, oh, let's just say this bag. We have this bag, okay? And we have God, the infinite being. So God everywhere, God runs into this bag. Can God get through to the other side of this bag? Well, the question is, where isn't God? So God touching the bag, which is made of God, going through the bag, off into more God. It's just God mingling with God, mingling with God. That is what our existence is. So God is ever present as an infinite being, going on, stretching on for we don't know how far, and has come from we don't know where. All we know is that the infinite presence of God is now and real. So that's the first assumption that I make about the creator of all things. It's always been here and it's everywhere. Number two, my second assumption is based on an observation of nature. Nature's creators tend to love what they have created. Watch the behavior of, I'm really into birds, so I watch the behavior of birds all the time. I watch it. There's an eagle's nest I may have mentioned before that I watch and enjoy. And I always am amazed at how these raptors with these big beaks, big sharp beaks and big sharp talons that are made for doing what they do perfectly. But they can be kind of fearsome if you're on the business end. But if you are something that the eagle has created, if you are an egg, if you are a chick, then love dictates how that eagle behaves around that chick. It tiptoes around. It eases the food into the chick's mouth. It's very careful not to step on, not to hurt, not to disturb. And you should see these eagles tiptoeing around their big nest, these big, giant, fearsome eagles. Alligators. When alligators are hatched, the mother alligator lovingly scoops each alligator up, throws them in her mouth. And then after having collected all of the little baby alligators, she takes them off to her lair. Lovingly, gently, these jaws that can crush many things. That's its main vehicle for eating, but can also be so gentle and treat its young with such loving care that you would never believe that they also use the exact same thing to eat and to process its food. But there it is. And why is that? Because love rules the day when we're dealing with a creator and its creation. And this is throughout nature. So observing nature as we do, we can ascribe this natural quality of love and affection from the creator to the created. We can transfer that right to God. So because we have been created by God, because God has created everything, God loves everything. God has created me. God has created you. God loves us. Without question, we are whole, perfect, and complete in the eyes of God. That's what we are. So my second assumption is that God loves me and God loves all of us. I'm going to go ahead and assume that based on the fact that I was created by God. And this is another big concept, because up until I found religious science, I always kind of thought that we were tolerated by God, not so much love and embrace, but okay, I'll accept you and your flaws. And that was the idea that I had of my relationship with God. But that has evolved into an understanding that I come from God. There's nothing in me that isn't God. So of course, I'm loved by God. Of course. And so are you. So that's the second assumption that we make of God. The third assumption, the third and final assumption for our purposes today, is that I assume that an infinite God loves infinitely. An infinite being has no center, has no place where it's more or less. It is everywhere all at once, equally present everywhere. That is God, and that is also stands for all the qualities of God, are everywhere all at once. So the love of God is right now everywhere all at once. Whether we're feeling it or not, whether we know it or not, whether we see it or not, no matter what, if we believe in an infinite God, and we believe that that God loves us, then that God must love infinitely. So God is the source of love, always flowing, never fearing about running out, always pumping out love. So that's God in a nutshell, an all-powerful being that loves me personally, me. Not just the idea of me, not just the concept of me, but me. So now we move on to the second thing. Now, how does God speak? How does this infinite being that loves me infinitely, how does this thing speak? We need to know where to place our attention in order to hear the voice of God. So where do we listen? Since God isn't centralized, as we've already established, the voice of God is not limited to one medium. This means God could be speaking to us at any time, in any way, through any person, condition, or situation. So God is speaking through, and this is what I really love, through coincidence and synchronicity. That is a great way to identify that you personally are being spoken to by God. One of the things that I like to do is to make note of when I'm sitting, I'm thinking about something, right? And I'm sitting, I'm thinking about, thinking, all these thoughts are running through my head about this one thing that I'm thinking about. And so as I'm thinking, I'm pondering, I'm pouring a drink and I'm drinking my water. I go over to the TV, I turn it on, I sit down, I'm still thinking these thoughts. And then as I'm watching the TV and I'm thinking about what I'm thinking about, something on TV, someone says a word that is the exact word that I was thinking of at the exact time I was thinking it. Has that ever happened to you? That is so strange. As soon as the word rhubarb, I think of rhubarb for some reason, and then somebody's talking about rhubarb on TV at the exact same moment. That's God. That coincidence is telling you from God that I am here. That little thing that you just felt, that's God going like this. Me and you. I'm talking to you. It's me and you going through this. And sometimes the communication of God is just that simple. It's just God placing out a hand and touching you with warmth and love and beauty and saying, it's all right, I'm here. It's all right. Sometimes it's just that simple. Sometimes we think of the communication of God. You know, I grew up every Easter tradition, I watch the Ten Commandments. We watch them in this, we watch them here. I watch them, I turn them on. Sometimes I forget they're on, and then it'll be Easter or it'll be Easter Sunday, and then I'll sit down, I'm flipping through the channels, and I'll see the Ten Commandments are on. I'll say, oh, wow, Ten Commandments are on, I forgot, and I'll sit and watch. I love the movie. But growing up watching the Ten Commandments kind of made me believe that, okay, well, when God speaks, something's going to happen. And I'm not necessarily going to like it. I don't want to see a burning bush in my living room. I don't want to be sent on a task where I'm going to have to tell a Pharaoh that he's full of it and let my people go. I don't want to do that. I don't want these kind of communication. So I'm growing up wanting to be communicated to by God, but not wanting that kind of communication. And then I got into science of mind, and I got into learning about what else God can be and how else God can communicate to me. What else might God be saying? And so I got a little less worried about, God coming through with the burning bush. And don't get me wrong, God does communicate in miraculous ways, but God also communicates in little tiny ways. And as an infinite being, everywhere, all at once, in everything, God is ever present. So you'll have random events where you recognize, oh, wow. And you'll see, oh, that is a God thing. That is God coming through right there. You know it. It's personal. But you know when it happens to you. And it's not rare. The rare thing is when we pick up on it and realize, oh, that's God. God is speaking constantly. Remember? God is ever present. So whenever we are catching a glimpse of God, that just means that there is so much more of, that just means we're catching a glimpse of what is always there. We're witnessing what is always present. And we don't have like a successive run of coincidences and things that are always going to occur that keep it first and foremost in our minds. We may not have that confirmation at every moment, but we can know absolutely the presence of God at all times. And so, yeah, is God communicating by blowing the wind through trees, by the falling leaves, by the patterns of a T at the bottom of a cup, through rune stones, through tarot cards, through cloud formations? Yes, God is communicating through all of these things, in all of these ways, and so much more. So the third thing we need to establish is, what is God saying? Okay, I have got an active mind. I have got ADHD. So, and really, no joke, I really have it. And so a lot of times that winds up in my mind, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things happening, a lot of thoughts brewing around in there. And it's very difficult to know of the voice in my head, which voice is David and which voice is the divine. When can I know that what I'm hearing is from God and not just from me? Well, let's go with let's continue on with this idea that God is all-knowing. We've already established that. All-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful, creator of all things. This much we know. Ever-present, ever-loving, ever-communicating. So what would such a thing be moved to speak about? The most important communication in my life occurs when I am talking to someone that I love. And the most important thing that I can say to the person that I love is that I love them. I want them to know I'm always here and that they can always rely on me. I want my loved ones to know that I believe in them. I want them to know that they can do anything. And I want them to always know who they are and what they mean to me. I want them to know the greatness that they are and what they mean to me. I'm thinking of my closest relationships, my dearest friends, my closest relatives, my children. When I think of the most direct conduit to the deepest part of me, I think of my children, whom I have known since birth, and what I want to convey to them. What do I want to convey to my family? If I could sit on my kid's shoulder and constantly whisper in their ear that I love them and give them messages of support and empowerment, that so that they're never in doubt of themselves, never in doubt of my love, I would do it. But I can't do it. Why? Because I'm only a human being. I've got limits. I can't be with my loved ones at all times, whispering in their ears and telling them this. You know, I have my limitations. I can't do it. I want to, but I can't. God does not have such limitations. God has the capability of sitting on your shoulder at all times and telling you messages of love and support at all times. Because God is an infinite being, remember? God is there, loving us for sure. So God is fully capable of expressing all of its love at all times. So I ask you, why wouldn't God do that? I can't do it because I'm limited in power. God is all powerful. So God has no problem doing it. So what God is doing first and foremost is being there to say, I love you. And anytime you get the sense that you're loved, anytime that you're getting the sense that love is being shed upon you, that love is coming from God. That's God telling you that you're loved. Your love is part of the one love that is love. And that's God. So how does God convey this? What is God saying? All of God's communication stems from one word. One word starts it all. And that word is yes. Yes to our beliefs. The foundation of science of mind says that as we put our beliefs into the universal mind, we accept them into our mind, we put those beliefs into the universal mind, and then God responds with a manifestation of those beliefs. If we believe that God is the creator of all things, the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving creator of all things, and we believe that God is an infinite being that loves all, and that God says yes, then that will be our experience of God. And everything that God does from that standpoint will reflect that divine yes. So consider the possibility that every time you get a message of empowerment, love, encouragement, support from anywhere, it is a message from God. So what about the messages that we get? A lot of messages. What about the messages that we get of fear and lack and limitation and I can't and I'm worried and this is not going right? Those are all thoughts that are prevalent in our minds, and they come up for everybody. Are those also from God? Well, to that I say that God operates and communicates in eternal spiritual principle. So that means that God operates and communicates in love, light, life, beauty, peace, power, and joy. Those fundamental principles. And God enjoys those principles, enjoys those qualities infinitely. God is infinitely those things. And is there a principle of fear? Is there a divine spiritual principle of limitation, of lack, of separation? Is there an infinite separation? No. These are not spiritual principles. These concepts didn't even exist until we existed. There was no, hey, this is going wrong, there was nothing. Everything is proceeding as far as God's plan is concerned. Everything is proceeding perfectly. The only ones to say it's not perfect are us. Just because we can conceive of imperfection. So God doesn't know anything about imperfection. God is all principle. And because God doesn't know anything about fear and lack and limitation and separation, and these are not principles, these concepts are not going to be spoken by God unless we believe in them. Unless we believe in them more than we believe in God. And if we believe in them strongly enough, guess what God will say? Yes. Here is your fear. Here is your lack. Here's your limitation. Here's your separation. Here is the world and the life that you believe in there. And God will place it right at your lap, right at your doorstep. So it's our job to tune our minds, to tune our beliefs, to make sure that we aren't believing in something that didn't come from God. And the less that we believe in lack and limitation and separation, the less of those things we will experience. Because God says, yes, 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 yes. So that leads me to today's homework. And you guys are ready to, you guys are a very studious center here at Mountainside. And I know that you always do your homework. And so here is what you can work on for the coming week. Know and listen. Know and listen. For the next week, know the nature of the God that you believe in. And practice knowing God. And anything that you can identify God with, oh God, yeah, separation, oh fear, oh doubt, oh lack. Practice the truth that those things don't have anything to do with God. These are human constructs, not constructed by God. So God isn't going to be communicating to you in lack. Practice knowing that God is infinite and everywhere. And infinite, everywhere, ever-present love is surrounding you. That is the reality that we want God to say yes to. That is the belief that we want to see made manifest in front of our eyes. So practice knowing. And then listen. And this is the fun part. Listen knowing that God is communicating to you at all times. Listen knowing that when you get a message of love, care, support, empowerment, anything that is connected to our divine principles, that is a message directly from God. And so what's fun about that? Well, the fun thing is seeing how creative God is. How many different ways can God say the exact same thing to you? Infinite. So look for God's communication. Listen for it. When you have a problem and you're in doubt, there's something I need. There's an answer I need. There's something I need that I don't feel as though I have it right now. This is where science of mind steps in and says, look, you're in need. Know that you have it. If it's something that you need, know you have it. And guess what? God will say to that knowing, yes. And along with that yes, divine manifestation. And that which you are looking for, that answer, that job, that love, that assurance, that whatever it is, you shall have it. And lastly, before I go, if you have any problem knowing, if you have a problem listening, if you have trouble with any of these concepts, then I ask you, please engage with one of your blessed practitioners. Get with a practitioner. We are trained as practitioners to know this, to know the presence of God everywhere, to listen for God, to affirm God, to see God in ourselves and to see God in you just as equally. And sitting down with a practitioner, talking about the wonderfulness that you are, talking about how you are whole, perfect, and complete in new and exciting ways can change your life. So if you have a problem with these concepts, you have a problem knowing, you have a problem listening, then take it to a practitioner and know the truth together. And God will say yes to you both. So let us take that into prayer. And it is here as we go inside to that place of peace and quiet, inside to a space within us that is beyond condition. It's beyond our senses. It is beyond everything that we can see and touch and taste and feel. It's beyond everything. It is the birthplace of our creativity. It is that place of absolute stillness. It is that place where we can enjoy the full measurement of God's gifts without hesitation, without interruption, and without dilution. Full 100% God experience within each and every one of us. That is the place that we journey to now. From that place, with peace and safety and security and love, that we can proclaim and know and experience the one God, one consciousness, the one mind. We can experience, we can know, and we can declare that this one is all, and we are all joined to it, made of it, moving through it. The one is all, and we can never be separated from it. And as we are bound together throughout eternity, throughout all time and space, we know that as God is in the great, as God is all light, power, beauty, love, power, joy, as God is all of these things in the infinite, we know that we too are shards of the infinite, each one of us carrying all of the qualities of God, each one receiving all of the love of God, each one of us wielding all the power, right up to the point that we can conceive of it. And so this is what we call out as real, an all-powerful God that we are infinitely joined to, that we share with, that uplifts us, that guides us, that speaks to us. And we know this communication, this conversation goes on without end. And we know the more that we listen, the more we can hear. And the more that we hear, the more that we will receive. And the more we will learn about ourselves. And the more that we can consciously, actively make our own dreams come true. All of our dreams, no matter who we are, no matter what we are all empowered by God. So it is with this knowledge that I am filled with gratitude. With gratitude, and I can just say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Infinite thank yous to an infinite God for everything that we receive, all messages, all confirmations, all loving endearments. We can accept these and we can expect more. Accept and expect more from a God that can only give. So it is with this gratitude that I release these words into the mind of the universe to do what we said it does, to do what it has always done, to respond to me with yes. And here it is. Yes, and here is the world that you believe in. And so I release these words without a care, knowing that it's true, knowing that it is done and acted upon immediately. And let us all release these words with the words, and so it is. Thank you.
And so it is. Thank you, David. Thank you, thank you. Great words of wisdom and an inspiration for all of us to do our homework this week. So we thank you for